We are joined now by Angie Laird and Randy Gollub, the co-coordinators of the Education and Training Tools and Resources Initiative at NITRC. Welcome today. Tell me, Angie, why is making more information about educational training tools and resources important to the community?
Well, I do think it's critically important, primarily because as the director of a neuroimaging lab, it's my job to mentor the next generation of scientists. And so introducing folks to, in my case, fMRI research and all of the different neuroinformatics tools that are available to students to both organize and manage, pre-process and analyze their data. There are a lot of different resources that we sort of throw at folks in the first year of their training. And having a strong foundation of educational resources, therefore, is critical. You know, given the time that we spend with students, it really is up to them to develop independent skills in going out and identifying resources that are available to them that are appropriate for their research, learning how to use those tools. And so that's where the educational resources come into play, that it gives them an opportunity to, you know, get started with the data. And so this is why, you know, we feel that an educational component to NITRC is really, really appropriate.
I would add to everything wise that Angie just shared is that no matter how expert a mentor is at training their trainees or how advanced a person is in their own experience, we're all always trying to learn more and new things. And keeping up to speed across the board with all the things that are available, it's time consuming. And so one of the real advantages of having NITRC as a clearinghouse is that it can provide for these educational offerings the same kind of community voting, lifting up, communications, dialogue, things that help us to ferret out, oh, this is a great resource, but on slide so-and-so, they made this one mistake. They give feedback to the developer who put the materials up, maybe gets fixed, or they get sent to another resource where that it corrects that. Maybe that person just wasn't as expert on that particular subdomain of a topic, but you know, the community points them to another resource with more information. I think also there is, you know, there are so many amazing good labs. And there are so many really strong people who care about education and are creating materials, so that's really proliferated over time. You know, in the old days, when I started teaching my course for the first time in like 1999, we didn't have a textbook. There were barely any papers. There was like, we had to invent our lab. We had to invent all the text. You know, everything was new for the first time. We're not there. Right now, we have the opposite problem. Everybody's an expert. Everybody has their best way. And everybody has, if you don't do it their way, then you're doing it wrong. And so the combination of all these independent labs and these sort of larger aggregate, you know, maybe you're in a center where they do have really good best practices and you're lucky because there's a big community around you to support you in choosing. But if you're not, if you're in a place where it's kind of a little bit siloed and you don't have that kind of support, super useful to have some guidance about which materials are the ones that will directly address what you want and what you need. And NITRC is a unique way of very respectfully and in a community way, gathering those materials together. Very democratic, you know, the world votes, you know, like people, they vote with their feet, you know, if somebody's using it, you'll see that because there's traction and there's traffic. And it just like without having to do the ratings, it's just what gets used because it's helping people will show up on our board as being more impactful. And so it's kind of like Wikipedia. It will grow with the community that uses it. And the more people who use it, the more valuable it will become.
Yeah, I want to sort of second Randy's points about equity here is that, you know, we are developing this large community of researchers globally. And throughout my career, I have been at both large neuroimaging research centers as well as universities where the programs are more nascent and there isn't such a local community. So the idea that this gives both a range of institutions, gives them the opportunity to enhance their neuroimaging communities by connecting with people across disparate locations, I think is really, really key here.
Great, thanks. Randy, tell me, what types of things count as educational or training tools or resources?
Well, again, this is the blessing of working with NITRC. It's like whatever you think is helpful could be a resource is fine to include. It's not an exclusive club. It's an inclusive democratic space. And so if you've gone all the way to teaching a course and you want to share your lectures and the slides and the labs, you can throw that, links to that and hook it up really nicely. If you have just heard a great TED talk and you think it points them to something that's really impactful because you learned something that's really helpful and it pulls together why use this resource or that resource, that's fine to link to as well. You literally can choose anything that is helpful. If you're developed a software tool and you're pointing not only to the software, you might want to also point to a README page on your GitHub that actually goes through the content. You don't have to make new educational content. You can just point to the places where the material is.
Right. And so thinking about the different types of educational resources, this can range from YouTube videos, which, maybe lectures that were given, or it could be software demonstrations to walk people how to use a tool. As Randy mentioned, this could be GitHub pages, which include a lot of different types of information, but it could also be software manuals that are just posted on a website somewhere, wiki pages, bulletin boards for communication, anything that sort of disseminates information about how to do something.
I think the one caveat is that you need to have something that persists. So if you're going to host it and link to it, you want it to stay there and not be something that that people go to and then they get frustrated because the link is broken and it's not there anymore. And so whatever you will have the ability to maintain.
I guess my additional point there is NITRC itself offers all sorts of hosting things. So if something has any chance of disappearing for any reason, well, there's all sorts of open-ended spaces that NITRC is super happy to have you use as well, from web page hosting to file hosting and things like that. So, and that's part of the mission behind the origin of NITRC, was to help protect investments in these things so they don't just disappear when the graduate student leaves or the faculty changes jobs or careers and things like that. So Angie, if I was the developer of an educational or training resource, what do you recommend that I do?
So it's actually a very easy process. The first step is to simply create a NITRC account, and then you register that resource on the NITRC website. There are, if you go to the NITRC website, there's easy to follow instructions on exactly how to do that. It is a fairly fast and painless process. The goal here is to simply make sure that this resource or tool or whatever the entity is discoverable, and the other users of NITRC will be able to find it easily.
Anything to add there, Randy?
No, I guess what I would just say is, if you are not the developer, but a user of a resource that you think is valuable, take a moment to ping the developer of the resource and invite them, ask them, encourage them to submit to NITRC. You can't do it on behalf of them because they have to be the one who signs up for it, but you can be a voice for the community and for your peers and colleagues to encourage more content to be included.
That's exactly right. And if you reach out to that developer, that's great. And if they don't, for whatever reason, you can always reach out to NITRC. So yes, if you've reached out to your happy, friendly tool developer and they haven't listed their resource, go ahead and reach out to NITRC, and we work with our liaison team, and we can help encourage folks to include things that aren't included. So again, like was said, it's a community. Either get people to add it themselves or get us to help encourage them to add it. Is there anything else in general you'd like folks to know about the education and training resources at NITRC?
I would just say, because we've only recently at NITRC added this as a more substantial attended to vector in what the NITRC offerings are. There were already a fair number of materials that Angie and I and David and others have curated. And so you might be surprised to see something in there listed already categorized in this way. And you as a developer, for example, and you didn't realize you'd already done it. And that, so you could just say, thank you, NITRC, for taking care of this for me. And so Right now, if you were a newbie or wanted to learn something new, you may already find some materials there, even though we've just started a sort of a advertising campaign to let people know that this material is now being organized in this nice way. And so there's a start to it, and that will help you get a better feel for the different ways that you could properly give credit or link up or make use of the different features that NITRC as a platform offers to our community. If NITRC isn't something you're super familiar with, this might be a nice way to learn more about it as a new person coming into the environment. That, you know, it is really a community organizing environment to help and support and sustain users across the spectrum. And so I would just say, because and then I would say the flip side of that is because it is just brand new and we made our best guesses and best efforts to organize the material properly. If you go in and we put your material in and you're like, heck no, you got that all wrong, please feel free to reach out to the NITRC team and we will fix it to your pleasure. And if you don't know exactly the right way to use or organize the material, just ask. We have we're friendly and we're easy to work with, and we'll make it as pleasant for you as possible.
Angie, anything to add to that?
Just ditto everything Randy said, and that we're really excited to be here today to describe all of the work that we've been doing so far and to let everybody know that we have a lot of enthusiasm for moving this forward. We think that this is a really important component of NITRC, and this is a great way for us to enhance the connections across the community. So we're real excited to be here.
Great. And so I'd like to thank Randy and Angie, our co-leaders of the training and educational domains, for their help in organizing NITRC around these topics.
Happy NITRCing.
Thanks, everybody.